Ho ho ho! Darren from MRT here. Welcome to my Christmas build.
If you're a first time viewer, make sure you subscribe and hit the little bell icon to be notified of my upcoming videos, and make sure you like and share. Also follow us on Facebook, and please have a look at my new website www.modelrailroadtechniques.com.
What I'm looking at doing on this, what I'm going to call the Christmas market build, is making a small diorama. So just got some extruded foam board here, which is about 1.5 inches. The measurements are about 20 inches wide by about 2 feet deep. So what I'm going to look at doing is having a more of a traditional Christmas market type fair. So I've got some of my German type buildings here that I've already built, and so we're going to look at having a roadway across the front here, a little one-way lane straight road that goes in around the back, and this is where all the market's going to be. So that's going to be paving stones that I'll put in here. This video is going to be probably over a number of parts. So what I'm going to look at doing first is looking at masking up and plastering up these roadways. So let's get into it. As I pointed out, what I'm going to look at doing is masking up these roadways and footpaths and the like. So what I'll do, I'll build it up a number of millimeters to bring the profile up. So the beauty of this tape is you can really bend it quite nicely to get some nice transitions. Terrain range, which is the paving tape, which is ST1455. And what that actually is square edges, that's fine. So I sort of want rounded corners, being it's a bit more of an old type of town. A few millimeters tall. So on one side it is adhesive 3M side, if I can get it. So it's just a matter of pulling it back. Now you need to do it on both sides of what you're trying to do for obvious reasons, because what it does, it creates a little dam in between. So it is quite good for going around corners, hence why I like using it. So I'll end up bringing it through. What I'll do, right, so that's it at this point in time. So what we need to do, we'll mix up some plaster. So the plaster I use is just normal casting plaster. Alright, so we'll continue on with doing our foam tape. So this is a very easy process. So it's just a matter of then lining it up for the next one to come through, making a nice smooth transition the best you can, pulling the tape through, and then cutting it off nice and square at the end here. I'll need to, this is the edge of the board right here. So what I will need to do is I will need to put on each of the 3 edges, I will need to put a buffer. So basically all it does, it makes like a dam scenario that so when you bring the plaster through and you screed it through, your plaster doesn't come off the ends effectively. So now we've got the line, or the paving tape in between sort of these areas here. So this is where the plaster is going to sit. So in effect what you do, you mix up the plaster and you just grab, comes with this little tool here, which is just a few millimeter thick piece of styrene sheet. It's just a matter of putting the plaster down and pulling it through. And what that does is it should, if you get enough plaster in there, make it level between there and there. So once the plaster goes off, you just pull this out and then you colour it up. So obviously we're going to have a bit of a play around, so we're going to have some areas here that might dip away, but we'll get to that in due course. Now, first of all, as you can see, the board is quite shiny. So probably what I should have done beforehand, looking back to it, is just sand a little bit of the top off to make it a little bit rough. So what I'm going to do is some 80 grit sandpaper. Plaster I use, as I said before, is just a normal plaster of Paris casting plaster. There's obviously a myriad of brands from, or types I should say, from Woodland Scenics, Hydrocoal and the like. So it's up to you what you want to use, but I just use a nice cheap version. So I like using these types of containers that you can sort of have a bit of a lip and sort of pour it in nicely. So I won't pour this all in one lot. I'll sort of work my way around and then go through. It's actually quite warm here in Australia today, so this plaster will go off reasonably quickly. So what we'll do, so what the consistency we're trying to get is, as I said, a porridge or an oatmeal, so we can work it in a little bit better. Sort of holds its form a little bit nicer. So that's the sort of consistency that I like. As I said, it's going to go off very quickly here, so I'm going to have to start working with it. I might goop it out using a spoon. See what we've got. Don't be too concerned if you get a little bit that comes out over the top. That can always, once it's dry, we can clean it up later. So what I look at doing is sort of pushing it back. As I said, you will make a mess. I'll just drag some of that forward, and then make sure you got it all into the corners all nicely. Then every now and again I'll just clean this blade off. Could do this with all sorts of your trowels and the like, so it's just a matter of pulling it through. As you can see, there are some irregularities in there, so what I will go back through, possibly with another coating after it goes off a little bit more. And the final step of this process, you will sand it back lightly as well. So I have some other tools I'll use here as well for artist clay trowels. So I will, as I go, I will start cleaning up edges and the like. So it's just a matter of pulling it through, pushing it so it's actually flat or buff right against the two pieces of paving tape. And as you can see, it needs to be dragged through a little bit more the top. So basically, you know when you've got it reasonably flat is you should be able to, on both sides, to see the tape. So you can sort of see this top corner here. From my eye, it might not show up on the camera that well, that it's actually a little bit high. So I will go back through that corner, and that'll give me the opportunity to smooth a little bit more as well. So to get it nice and smooth, you just gotta try to transverse your curve, or however you've done it the best you can. All right, so that's pretty well done. That point, this section here. So I just need to drop a little more plaster to do the bottom section, and then I'm probably going to have to really do some work in here, I think, because that's where it's possibly going to be a little bit harder to make it transition in around the corner to make all that look nice and smooth. So working with slightly thicker plaster, or thicker consistency of plaster, is better than thinner. You need something, once it goes down, it sort of holds its shape a little bit whilst it's going off, because you just be pulling the plaster around. Otherwise, if it's too thin, if it's too thick and gluggy like that, has the opposite effect as well, makes it very hard to smooth out. And that's my dog that's just come in. Hello, Dewey. I've pulled all the paving tape off and just given it a light sand. Now there's still some imperfections in it that I'm not that totally happy with, but the reason why I haven't persisted with getting it dead flat like you might with a bitumen road, I was going to start going through and doing some cobblestone paving type on the road. So all I've done with this is I've done sort of a capping stone along here, So it's just a matter of I bought these, so these little scribes. So what they're for is scribing out clay and pottery. So you buy them in a pack of about 10 different tools. So this one, there's a good little sort of straight edge on it. So all you look at doing is, so once you sort of got you've drawn up, so you use a sharp sort of pencil and you draw up your lines. Now I'm not going to go the whole way through and do mine, so I'm going to have patches that are going to be sort of concretey type setup. So 2 reasons: it's a very, very long drawn out process, and I wanted just a little bit of variation, and the cobblestone looks really, really nice. It just takes a very long time to do it. You'll do your horizontal lines, and it's not 100% the way I'm doing it pertinent that they're totally square with the course before, because I'm not doing it all the way through. If you're going to do this process and scribe it all the way through, you'd want to draw your lines so all your courses of your cobblestone all lined up. So just I use a very basic sort of bristle brush, and all that does is gets rid of all the plaster powder. So just sort of don't flick it around because it is quite obnoxious. So it's just a matter of you just sort of scribe. Now, so you'll see here, so the next course you go halfway along the next brick. So that offsets the brick like, you know, no different that you've got bricks on houses. So it's just a matter of drawing it in. So you go between the top line and the bottom line with nice even pressure. Now you don't want to push too hard, because what you can find is you can actually scribe out and then the whole top coat of this will just crumble out and it'll basically make a pothole. If that's the effect you're after, all well and good, but I want mine looking a little bit neater than that. Now these cobblestones are probably a little bit overscale compared to HO. However, to get them down to the size you probably need for HO would be quite difficult and probably beyond myself anyway. I'm sure there's some modelers out there that have attempted it and done it quite successfully, but the smaller I find that you get them, the harder they are to scribe and to keep it looking nice. So what I've done here is done the swale. So I'll do each of the courses up to there. So that sort of just gets, so what the effect I'm trying to achieve here is sort of old cobblestone that's having to be repaired over time. So what we're going to do is start painting some of this cobblestone. Now, research I've done in the real world, I'm going to have a slightly blue tinge to it. So what I'm going to do is looking at using that Tamiya XF66, which is a light grey, and just a little tinge of Arctic blue from Vallejo, which is 71.071. So I'll mix them up in the palette and we'll start splodging it on. So obviously here, this bit here, we're going to start looking at the new part of the road. So I'm not going to worry about painting over that at this point in time. So we want to get it right up to the edges of the cobblestone. So for this next step, I'm going to use Americana slate grey, mixed with just a little bit of Americana Indian turquoise. So this next step, we're not going to cover the whole model. Just sort of it's a sponging technique that you've seen in previous videos, just to add a little more depth of colour. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is doing a raw umber wash. So I'll use Americana raw umber. So just get that down to a nice thin sort of wash, and it's just a matter of going through the model. And so what it actually does, it sort of gets in all the crevices, all the nooks and crannies, so that just brings the rest of those colors that your initial color and then the sponge color that you put on, and then just gets into the mortar lines and just starts getting the model to pop a little bit more. Okay, so I've gone through and done the mortar line. So what I'll do, I'll put in the cards above how I did it, because it's the same process or technique that I used for doing my mortar lines on my brickwork. So in short, what you do, you make up a wash that I used with antique white and my trusty slate grey from Americana. Now, initially I went in with the antique white, and I didn't quite, it was just too much of a contrast. It was just too light, so I ended up mixing the grey together, making up a wash, flooding it through and just letting it dry. So what I do from here is I just slightly dampen it, and then get the paper towel, because you don't want too much, and then you just go through and then you just slowly take that wash off the top of the bricks, I should say. Alternatively, you could grab a dishcloth and go through and take all that off. So you can sort of see how the colours are coming through quite nicely. Cobblestone pretty well finished. Now, I didn't show the process of colouring up this because it's just a matter of painting it through. Now, I did it about 2 or 3 times because I wasn't happy with the colouring. So what I ended up doing was just a slight mixture of Vallejo light grey, which is 71.050, and also Vallejo sea grey, which is 71.049 to get this colour. So all I do, obviously, just a simple paintbrush and do it through. Now, what I also ended up doing was just dry brushing a little bit, just to tone this down a little bit. So it's just a little bit of black Vallejo pigment and also white Vallejo pigment. So I'll try to take you around the rest of what it looks like, without getting into the shadows there too much. Now, I've probably gone overboard with just probably a little bit darker than I normally would if I was going to do something like this. Now, the reason I've done that is become more apparent later on. So this is going to be a Christmas with a little bit of snow scene, so the colours underneath are probably going to be a bit more vivid because everything's going to be wet and dark.
That's the end of this video. So the next process is me adding the snow and ice effects to this roadway. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Make sure you subscribe, click that little bell icon to be notified of upcoming videos. Support us on Patreon, like us on Facebook and Instagram at Model Railroad Techniques.